Shortly after noon on the 8th of November 1954, a special train passed through the frontier station of Kaldenkirchen with His Imperial Majesty the Emperor of Ethiopia, a most exalted visitor to Western Germany. Two hours later, the train drew into the gaily decorated station at Bonn, the federal capital, which for weeks had been preparing for this, the most regal and ceremonial reception given to any visitor since the end of the war. The federal president, Professor Heuss, the chancellor, Dr. Adenauer, and almost the whole of the cabinet were there to bid welcome to their imperial guests from Ethiopia. The people of Bonn treated this grey November day as a holiday. All the schools were closed in honor of the visit, and the children thronged the streets, each waving the Ethiopian flag. The emperor, accompanied by the federal president, then drove in a car, also carrying the green, yellow and red standard, to the Petersberg, where His Imperial Majesty and his suite were to stay, the famous hotel with its majestic view across the Rhine. That same evening, a state banquet was given in honor of the royal guests at the Villa Hammerschmidt, the residence of the President of the Federal Republic of Germany. Prominent personalities from diplomatic circles and the cream of society were there to pay tribute to His Imperial Majesty. The newsreel cameras were there too to record an historic occasion. The Emperor with the Federal President, the Chancellor Dr. Adenauer and Professor Carlo Schmidt, Minister President Arnold, the Chancellor and His Excellency the Court Chamberlain, Minister of the Interior Herr Schroeder with His Excellency the Ethiopian Minister for Foreign Affairs. One of the more important public events was a visit to the agricultural faculty of the Friedrich Wilhelm University in the Rhineland, where the Emperor, who was accompanied by His Excellency the Ethiopian Minister of Justice, was graciously pleased to accept the honor of an honorary degree. In his citation, the Dean, Dr. Wendt, praised the services of their honored guest in the agricultural development of his country. And in his reply, the Emperor paid tribute to the great assistance rendered his country by German botanists and explorers. After a tour of the capital, the Emperor visited the Rathaus in Bonn, where the Oberbürgermeister, Herr Busen, presented His Majesty with a classroom fully equipped for 30 pupils. The Emperor, in reply, presented the city of Bonn with the silver and gold-banded tusks of an African elephant, 2 antique spears, and the gold-studded shield of a warrior. His Imperial Majesty then signed the city's Golden Book, a royal autograph in picturesque Amharic script, which Bonn has added to its treasure of valuable and historic documents. Thousands again lined the streets to cheer the Emperor on his departure. The first stage of his visit to Western Germany was over. The next stop was in Cologne. This city, called the Queen of the Rhineland, had a special attraction for the Emperor, who paid an early visit to the famous cathedral, one of the largest in Europe and a splendid example of ornamental Gothic architecture. Not only the monuments from the past were of interest to the royal visitor, but also the achievements of today. At the experimental station of the Alwegbahn in the Fullinger Heide, a monorail car gave an impressive demonstration of cheap and speedy transport possibilities for the future. Everywhere he went within this center of European industry, the emperor devoted his particular attention to technical progress. In Karl Arnold, Minister-President of North Rhine-Westphalia, he found an informed and competent guide. Among the more impressive sights of the tour were the huge blast furnaces of the Rheinhausen steelworks near Duisberg. Work was stopped for a few minutes on the arrival of the royal party, and the workers received them with cheers and applause. Then the emperor witnessed the exciting scene as a giant blast furnace was tapped, and watched the making of steel ingots from the white-hot mass of metal to their final shaping in the great rolling and stamping mill. The application of modern techniques to the industry of his country is due very largely to the personal initiative of the emperor himself. Here in Essen, some 43 apprentices from Ethiopia, who have been trained in various branches of the German engineering industries, had the honor of being presented to their emperor. There were flowers and more flowers for the royal visit to Altenhof, a settlement for retired workers from the Ruhr industries. The emperor was especially interested in all the social and welfare problems of our industrial civilization. To the inhabitants of Altenhof, the visit was an unforgettable experience. In hundreds they surrounded the royal car, as with its escort of 16 white-uniformed police, it left on the next stage of the tour. This was to the famous Westphalian stud farm of Warendorf. An extra guide to the royal party was the Federal Minister for Food, Agriculture and Forestry, Dr. Lübke. For the emperor, who has done so much to improve the bloodstock and standards of animal husbandry in his own country, this visit to a model farm was of obvious interest. The high spot of the agricultural display was the great parade of stallions, noble animals whose pedigrees and records of achievements make them much sought after in all parts of the world. These magnificent teams of Kaltblüter provided a fine picture of harnessed power, breeding and beauty. The agricultural machinery at Warendorf is just as well known and esteemed as its famous horses. The Land School of Agricultural Machinery put on a fine display of modern farming appliances. But now the time had come for the last visit of the tour, to the free and Hansa city of Hamburg. The Senate, with Burgermeister Dr. Sieverking at its head, received His Imperial Majesty at the Rathaus, the city hall. The most exciting pleasure that Hamburg can offer its guests is a trip round the harbour, one of the largest in the world. The weather on this, the last day but one of the Emperor's visit to Germany, was wonderful. The sun was shining and only the lightest of breezes rippled the water. Ideal conditions for a trip on the river. Baron von Herwarth, who was responsible for the whole of the imperial tour, could hardly have arranged it better. Here, as always, when he appeared in public, the Emperor was met with a warm and friendly ovation. The Senate's barge took the royal guests out among the galaxy of ships from so many different nations. On this particular Saturday afternoon, there were dozens of ships of all sizes and from all parts of the globe, testifying to Hamburg's claim as Germany's gateway to the world. While from the distance could be heard the incessant clamour of the shipyards. This tanker, the largest ever to be built, caught the especial attention of His Imperial Highness the Duke of Haile. For more than an hour, the party inspected the countless craft, the drifters, freighters and passenger ships, and of course the old training schooner, the Palmyra, with its tall, romantic masts. A civic reception marked the end of the royal tour, a tour which had forged a link between two nations. The German Chancellor, Dr. Adenauer, has spoken of their common purposes and hopes, upon which is based a mutual respect and a friendship which can carry over the many miles and outweigh any differences between them. The following day saw the royal departure. At the Dammtor station in Hamburg, a special train was waiting to carry the Emperor on his way to Scandinavia. Before he left, however, His Imperial Majesty showed again that lovable human nature of his when he presented a golden souvenir coin to an enraptured little boy. Then the last words of thanks and farewell. The 6-day visit was ended, an imperial visit which the people of Germany will remember forever, and with pride.